The candle on the table flickers once, and in that half-second of unstable light, Zarya already knows something is wrong. She doesn't know what yet. She just knows. The restaurant hums around her, silverware scraping porcelain, low jazz pressing against the ceiling, couples leaning into each other across white tablecloths like they've rehearsed this. She smooths the front of her dress for the third time. Burgundy silk. The good dress. The one she saves for occasions that feel like they might matter. This was supposed to matter. She checks her phone. 7:14. He said 7 o'clock? The man across from her, the one her sister called gorgeous, the one she described as a lawyer with a penthouse and good manners, arrived late, sat down without a proper greeting, and has spent the last 11 minutes talking about himself in a voice calibrated precisely for an audience of one. Himself. Zarya wraps both hands around her water glass. Cool. Stay cool. But something is off about him. Not the lateness, that she can forgive. Not the monologue, she can redirect that. It's his eyes. They never quite land on her face. They slide past her, scan the room, check something over her shoulder with a rhythm that feels rehearsed. Like he is watching for a cue. Like this whole evening has a stage direction she wasn't given. You ever been to Tuscany? He asks, and doesn't wait for an answer. Zarya sets down the water glass. She looks out through the restaurant's floor-to-ceiling window facing the street, amber lights from passing cars, the wet gleam of cobblestones, the ordinary chaos of the city that never pauses for anyone's bad night. And then she sees it. A phone. Raised. Recording. A woman standing just outside the pool of streetlight, half in shadow, framed by the restaurant's warm glow against the dark, and even with the distance, even with the glass between them, Zarya knows that posture. Knows the way that woman holds her chin slightly elevated. Knows the particular satisfaction in that stillness. Her stomach drops. Sable. Her twin sister is standing on that street recording this. Recording her. The man says something. Zarya doesn't hear it. Her eyes are locked on the figure outside, the phone catching the orange shimmer of the restaurant light, and she watches Sable shift, just slightly, to get a better angle. Not a better angle of the restaurant. A better angle of her. Zarya turns back to the man. She looks at him fully, the practiced boredom behind the smile, the way he glances at his watch but keeps talking anyway, filling the air with words that mean nothing, building a scene. Building content. He isn't performing for her. He is performing at her. Her chest tightens. She doesn't move. She won't give Sable the reaction she set up this whole theater to capture, not the flushed face, not the tears, not the moment of public collapse. She knows exactly how this script is written. She's read Sable's cruelty often enough to recognize the structure of it. But knowing the trap doesn't always mean you can walk out of it cleanly. The man leans back, gestures for another glass of wine, and, loudly enough that the table beside them pauses, says, I'm going to be honest with you. My friend set this up. She said you needed the confidence boost. She said you needed the confidence boost. The table beside them doesn't resume. It waits. Zarya feels the heat climb her neck. Feels the exact weight of 12 pairs of eyes landing on her simultaneously. Feels the moment the room reorganizes itself, from a collection of strangers having their own evenings, into an audience. She sits very, very still. He wasn't reacting to her at all tonight. He was performing. She looks out the window one last time. Sable hasn't moved. The phone is still raised. Still recording. And the man orders his second wine like she isn't there. She planned this. The thought arrives not as a revelation but as a recognition, the particular exhaustion of understanding something you've always, at some level, already known. Zarya's hands are flat on the tablecloth. She is not shaking. She decides this. She controls the hands, she controls the face, she gives the camera outside nothing it can use. But behind that stillness, behind the burgundy silk and the composed posture, something is cracking along a fault line that has been there for years. She was 7 the first time Sable told her she was embarrassing. Not to hurt her. Or maybe yes, to hurt her, but wrapped in the language of concern, the way Sable always wrapped things. I'm telling you because I love you. I'm telling you because someone has to. 7 years old, standing in a school hallway with paint on her hands, and Sable had looked at her with those identical green eyes, their mother's eyes, everyone always said, and told her she looked pathetic. Zarya had believed her then. She'd spent years unlearning that belief. Years of therapy, of carefully choosing the voices she let in, of building the small, honest life that was actually hers, the apartment she'd painted herself, the friendships she'd cultivated slowly, the work she was proud of. She'd built distance from Sable not with anger but with quiet, deliberate withdrawal. Less contact. Fewer holidays. Shorter calls. And then 6 weeks ago Sable had called sounding warm, sounding like a sister, and said she wanted to reconnect. Said she'd been doing the work. Said she'd found this man, gorgeous and kind, and thought of Zarya immediately. I want good things for you. That's what Sable had said. I just want good things for you. Zarya had believed her again. She looks down at her hands. The tablecloth is cream linen, expensive, slightly rough at the edges. She focuses on that texture to keep the crack inside her from reaching her face. The man, she still doesn't know his actual name, she realizes, he's never told her, raises his second wine in a mock toast toward the window. Toward Sable. A small, deliberate gesture, like a salute between collaborators. There it is. This wasn't spontaneous cruelty. This wasn't Sable being impulsive. There was a meeting before this. A plan. A rehearsal, probably. A man hired or convinced or charmed into playing a role, the disappointing date, the public humiliation, the setup for whatever caption Sable intends to post with the video. My sister's blind date. Watch. Zarya understands the machinery of it now with terrible clarity. The table beside them resumes conversation. The moment of public attention has already begun to dissolve, moving on to the next small drama of the evening. But Zarya can feel the residue of it. The way those seconds sit differently in her body than ordinary embarrassment. Heavier. More targeted. She wasn't just being embarrassed. She was being used. The man checks his phone. Typing something. He angles it away from her, but not before she sees the screen light, a message thread with a name that begins with S. She breathes out slowly through her nose. She will not cry at this table. She will not give Sable a single frame she can use. She will not confirm the story Sable has already decided to tell about her. She will sit here, in the good dress, and she will figure out how to leave with something intact. The jazz shifts to something slower. Someone at the bar laughs. The candle flickers again. And then, from just behind her left shoulder, a hand settles there. Not grabbing. Not startling. Just resting. With a weight that is specific and calm, the way a hand settles when it intends to stay. Zarya goes completely still. Everything around her pauses. The music keeps playing, the restaurant keeps breathing, but inside this moment, something has just arrived at her table that was not in anyone's script. She does not turn around yet. She waits. The man across the table stops talking. Not because he runs out of words. Men like him never run out of words. He stops because something in the air of the room has changed, the way pressure drops before weather arrives, and his performer's instinct registers the shift before his brain can name it. Zarya still hasn't turned. She waits to turn until she has composed her face completely, until nothing on it will cost her. Then she looks. The man standing behind her left shoulder is not what she expected. She doesn't know exactly what she expected. Someone she knew, maybe. A manager. A waiter with a question. But not this. He is tall in a way that reorganizes the space around him without effort. Dark suit, no tie, collar open at the throat. Tattooed hands, she notices this first, the ink curving past his wrist and disappearing beneath the sleeve, detailed enough that it looks deliberate, like a record of something. A silver watch. The kind that doesn't announce itself. His jaw is set, his dark eyes moving across the scene in front of him with the unhurried assessment of someone who is paid to be right about what he sees. He doesn't look at her immediately. He looks at the man across the table. That assessment takes approximately 3 seconds. Whatever he concludes, it doesn't soften his expression. He pulls out the empty chair to Zaria's right, not asking, not announcing, and sits down. Not beside the man. Beside her. He positions himself at a precise angle, half toward her, half facing the table, body creating a barrier so natural it doesn't look designed. The man across the table shifts. His confidence, so loud for the last quarter hour, recalibrates visibly. We're in the middle of. I know what you're in the middle of. The voice is low. Accented, not heavily, just enough to place somewhere sun-drenched and old, layered over American vowels. Not a sentence he delivers with heat. He states it the way someone states a fact about the weather. Then he says nothing else for a long moment. The silence does more work than words would. He looks at the man with the patience of someone who has unlimited time and no particular interest in wasting any of it on this. Then he asks, just the one question, conversational in tone, lethal in implication. Did she pay you? The man across the table opens his mouth. Closes it. Opens it again. His eyes move to the window, to the figure still standing outside, phone still raised, and back. A fraction of a second. Barely a glance. But a glance is a confession if the person reading it knows what to look for. That wasn't a guess, the man beside Zaria says quietly. That was confirmation. He doesn't move. Doesn't raise his voice. Doesn't touch anyone. He simply looks at the man across the table with the steady, terrible calm of someone who finds this deeply, genuinely boring, and that boredom is somehow more frightening than anger would have been. The man across the table puts down his wine glass. He reaches for his jacket, which is folded over the back of his chair. He checks his phone, S is still on the screen, and makes a decision. He leaves. No speech. No exit line. He simply gets up and walks out of the restaurant with the rapid, minimized steps of someone who has correctly identified the exit and is using it. The chair sits empty. The jazz keeps playing. Zaria stares at the tablecloth for 3 seconds. Then she looks at the man sitting beside her, the one who has not explained himself, has not introduced himself, has not asked her name or offered her comfort or said anything designed to make himself useful. He is watching the window now. Through the glass, outside in the amber and shadow, Sable still stands, but her arm has dropped slightly. The phone is lower. She is no longer recording. She is watching. And the man beside Zaria, whoever he is already looking back at her. Not in curiosity. In recognition. Like he already knows what Sable is before Zaria can explain it to him. Like he has looked at exactly this kind of thing before and knows precisely its shape and its reach and what it costs the person it's aimed at. Zaria feels something she doesn't know how to name yet loosen in her chest. Outside, Sable finally steps back into the shadow. His name is Dale. He offers it without preamble, the way someone offers a thing they expect to be sufficient. He doesn't expand on it. He doesn't produce a business card. He simply says it and waits, and she understands from his stillness that the name is the whole introduction. Zaria, she says. He nods once, like he is filing it in the correct drawer. For a moment neither of them says anything. The waiter appears uncertain. The table configuration has changed, the original occupant has evaporated, and there is now a new person sitting where no reservation exists. Dale looks at him briefly, orders water, and the waiter retreats with the particular efficiency of someone who senses the table requires no management from him tonight. Zaria almost smiles at that. Almost. You didn't have to do that, she says. Her voice is level. She has worked to make it level, but she thinks she's achieved it. I know. So why did you? He picks up his water glass when it arrives. He takes one drink. Sets it down with the deliberate care of someone who never rushes a gesture. Then he says, Because I was watching him before you sat down, and I knew what kind of evening you were walking into. And I'm not built to let that run its course without interrupting it. Zaria looks at him. You were watching him. I watch everyone in rooms I'm in. It's not personal. And that is? He meets her eyes. That is. She holds the look. In the 3 or 4 seconds that pass between them, she is cataloging things the way she always does when she is trying to understand a situation. The steadiness of him, the absence of performance, the way he has not once looked at his phone or toward the door or at anyone passing the table. He has oriented his full attention on this conversation and nowhere else. She is used to people performing attention. This is not that. She's my sister, Zarya says. She hadn't planned to say it that quickly. The woman outside. I know. She blinks. How? She looks exactly like you. And she watched you the entire time with the expression of someone who built the thing they're watching and is waiting to see if it holds. He pauses. That's a particular kind of face. I've seen it before. Zarya is quiet for a moment. She turns toward the window. Sable is gone. The street is just a street now, wet cobblestones, passing headlights, ordinary night. She set me up, Zarya says. She doesn't say it for sympathy. She says it because putting words to something accurately is the first step in not being destroyed by it. Yes. The man. She organized him. Yes. And she filmed it. She tried to. Zarya notices the tense. Did she get anything useful? The corner of his mouth moves, not quite a smile, but something adjacent. She got a video of a man leaving a table. Which is not the story she came to tell. Zarya exhales. The tension in her shoulders drops by perhaps 30%. Not gone, she's not naive enough to think one conversation dismantles what tonight set in motion, but lowered. He didn't save her loudly. The voice in her own head observes, the way she narrates moments after they happen. He erased the danger quietly. She wraps her hands around the water glass, the same gesture she made earlier tonight, when she was trying to hold herself together through the performance across the table. Same hands. Different weight in them now. You don't owe me anything, she says. No. He looks at her with the calm of someone who has already decided something. But I'd like to buy you dinner. If you're willing to sit at a table for another hour after the last 30 minutes. She considers it. She says yes. They move to a corner table, his suggestion, and she understands immediately why when she sits and can see both the door and the window simultaneously. He chose this instinctively, the way someone chooses a wall at their back as a matter of physical grammar. The menus arrive. He orders without looking at the prices. She notices that. Not the ordering, the not looking. Some people don't look at prices because they're careless. Some don't look because they've already memorized the menu. He doesn't look because the prices are genuinely irrelevant information to him. She files this. They talk for a while about nothing important, her work, his vague reference to import logistics, the neighborhood, and she allows herself to feel the warmth of ordinary conversation before the ground shifts again. It shifts when she says, almost offhandedly, Sable's done things like this before. Not this specific thing, but things. She's creative about it. Dale sets down his fork. He looks at her in the way she is starting to recognize, full and still, like an animal that has spotted something it is deciding whether to approach. How many times? He says. Not how many times has she done things like this. Just, how many times? I stopped counting, Zarya says. That was part of getting healthier about it. Stop tracking. When did it start? It started when we were born. She says it without drama, the way you say a thing that is simply true. I mean that more literally than it sounds. There are patterns with twins. Dominance patterns. Most siblings establish them gradually. We established ours early. He listens. He doesn't interrupt and he doesn't offer reassurance, and she finds this, unexpectedly, far more comforting than reassurance would be. She didn't come here to hurt your feelings, he says eventually. Zarya pauses. No. She came here to produce something. A video. Content. He says the word with a neutrality that contains contempt. Which means there's a platform. An audience. An intention beyond tonight. She has social media. A lot of followers. And she has done this to other people. He doesn't phrase it as a question. Zarya stills. I don't. What do you mean? This setup. The man, the restaurant, the recording from outside. The specific mechanics of it. That isn't improvised. That's rehearsed. He folds his hands on the table. Humiliation content involving real women who don't know they're being filmed. This is not a new model. The words land sequentially and each one costs her something. She processes them one at a time. You're saying she's done this to other women. I'm saying the construction of tonight looked very practiced. And practice means repeated. He meets her eyes without apology. He's not trying to soften this, and she understands he is giving her something more valuable than softness, accuracy. You weren't targeted because of who you are. You were targeted because you were accessible. Because she knows how to reach you. Because it costs her nothing to set you up. She wasn't special. She was selected. This should feel better than being hated. Somehow it doesn't, entirely. There is something particular about learning that your sister's cruelty isn't even personal, that you were a convenient prop in a performance that could have had any woman in the lead. Her throat tightens. This wasn't cruelty, she says, almost to herself. This was a system. Yes. His voice doesn't soften exactly, but the edges of it do something, shift slightly, make room. And systems can be dismantled. Cruelty by one person toward one person is harder. A system has points of pressure. She looks at him across the candlelight, the steadiness of him, the almost unnerving absence of anything wasted in his face, and asks the question that has been building since he sat down. Who are you? He is quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then, someone who has been watching networks like this for a while. Professionally. What kind of professional watches humiliation networks? He picks up his fork again. He takes a bite with the composure of someone who has decided exactly how much to say and has already said it. The kind, he says, that makes sure they stop. The wine between them catches the candlelight. Zarya turns her glass slowly in her fingers. And your sister, Dale says without looking up from his plate, conversational, careful, isn't the only one involved. The glass stops turning. She looks at him. The restaurant hums around them, warm and oblivious, full of people having evenings that belong entirely to themselves. And across the table, Dale meets her eyes with the measured calm of someone who has just placed a single tile on a board and is waiting for her to understand the game it begins. She doesn't cry. She wants him to know that isn't why she goes quiet. Give me a minute, she says. He gives her the minute without comment. He refills her water glass from the carafe. He doesn't look at her while she composes herself, and this, the specific grace of looking away, undoes her slightly in a way that directness wouldn't have. She starts from the beginning. Not the narrative beginning, not we were born and then, but the emotional beginning, which is a specific afternoon when she was 9 years old and their mother sat them both at the kitchen table and divided a small thing unevenly. A piece of cake. Extra frosting on Zarya's half because Zarya had a loose tooth and the frosting was softer. Sable had seen it. Had said nothing. And something in her face had closed. It sounds small, Zarya says. It isn't, Dale says. She looks at him. It isn't small, he repeats. It's the moment someone decides a story about themselves, and then spends the rest of their life collecting evidence for it. He says it without warmth or coldness, just with the precision of someone describing a mechanism they understand thoroughly. What was the story Sable decided? Zarya exhales. That she was the less loved one. That the world had given me what belonged to her. That everything I had, every small good thing, was something subtracted from her. And you spent years trying to redistribute. I spent years trying to disprove it. She pauses. Which is not the same thing, but it felt the same from inside it. Being more careful. Quieter. Making sure I didn't take up too much space at family events, didn't mention good news too enthusiastically, didn't seem too happy in front of her. She hears herself. I managed myself around her feelings for almost 20 years. Dale listens. He does not say that's terrible or she doesn't deserve you, the automatic responses that feel like comfort but are actually just shortcuts. He says nothing for a moment, and then, "What changed?" "She convinced me I'd imagined it." Zarya's voice is flat with the old exhaustion of it. "For a while. There was a job I was up for, a promotion I'd been working toward for 2 years. She was the one person I told, because we were still trying to be close, because I still wanted a sister. She told me she was proud of me." A pause. "I didn't get the job. Later I found out someone had called the hiring manager and said something about my reliability. I could never prove it was her. But you knew." "I knew." Silence. "Familiar pain," she says, almost to herself. It's a phrase her therapist used once, and she has carried it since. Familiar pain hurts deeper than new pain. Because new pain has no history. Familiar pain has 20 years of it. "She didn't break you tonight," Dale says quietly. "She confirmed what she built." Zarya looks at him for a long moment. The candlelight does something to his face, makes it less armored, or perhaps she is simply seeing more of it now, after an hour of conversation that has moved through layers she doesn't usually move through with people she's known for an hour. "You speak about this like someone who knows what it costs," she says. He is quiet. Then, "I know what it costs to have the wrong people inside the walls." He doesn't expand on this. "And I know what it costs to find out too late." "Is that what happened to you?" "It's part of what made me careful." He looks at her, not the analyst's look she's gotten from him all evening, but something older and less fortified. "I don't talk about it the way you do. But I understand the geography of it." She holds this. "Why are you telling me any of this?" she asks. He thinks about it, genuinely thinks she can see him working through it, and she respects the working more than a quick answer would earn. "Because you told me the truth," he says finally. "All of it, without performing it. And I've been in enough rooms with people performing their pain to know the difference." The restaurant is quieter now. Later than she realized. Most of the nearby tables have turned over. "He's been tracking this network for months," something in her mind says, and she realizes with a start that she's known it since he described the mechanics of Sable's setup. Known it and not named it. She looks at him. "How long have you been watching her?" Zarya asks. The answer he gives her takes 20 minutes, and changes the shape of the evening completely. He had not been watching Sable specifically. He had been watching the network Sable moves inside, a constellation of content creators, middlemen, and platforms that trade in a specific commodity, real women, filmed without consent, at their most exposed. The humiliation is the product. The audience is the revenue stream. And the architecture of it, he tells her with the calm of someone reading a weather report, is more organized than she would want to know. Sable isn't the center of it. She is a supplier. "There are others like her," Dale says. "Feeding material in. Some film strangers. Some, like your sister, film people they already know, which produces better content because the subject's real emotional response is more legible on camera." Zarya sits with this. "And the men," she says. "The men they bring in. Paid. Usually. Or they owe someone something. Tonight's was the latter. I recognized him. He's been used before on similar setups." She looks at her hands. "So I was selected because she knew how to reach me. And tonight was planned for the content it would produce. And that content would have been uploaded and monetized." "Yes. And there would have been no way for me to. There wouldn't have been a practical path to removal or accountability. No. Not through normal channels." He says this without apology. "Content of this type operates in spaces where standard recourse is difficult. Not impossible, she notices. Difficult. But you work in the spaces where it isn't difficult," she says. He looks at her. "I work in the spaces where people with normal recourse have already run out of road." She understands what she is looking at now, or the outline of it. She doesn't have all the edges yet, but the shape is there. "They know you interrupted tonight," she says. The network. He is quiet for 1 second. They will. And that makes me a variable they didn't account for. His voice is precise. Which means they will want to understand what you know and who you're talking to. Which means, he sets down his glass, that walking home alone tonight is not something I'm going to allow. She wants to push back on allow. She files it instead, because what she actually feels is not irritated, it is the strange, carefully unfamiliar sensation of someone taking her safety seriously before she has asked them to. This stopped being about my embarrassing date about 20 minutes ago, she says. Yes. And you knew it would. I suspected it would escalate once I sat down. Interrupting these operations doesn't make them pause, it makes them accelerate. He looks at her with the directness she has come to expect from him, and something in his eyes is different now. Not harder. More present. I want to be clear with you, Zarya. If you walk away from this table tonight and go back to your life unchanged, the risk goes with you regardless. But if you let me do what I do, the equation changes. What do you do? I dismantle things. The jazz has been replaced by something quieter from a speaker she can't locate. Piano only, unhurried. The candle between them has burned 1/3 of the way down. This isn't about embarrassment anymore, she says softly. It isn't a question. No. They want me quiet. He doesn't answer that one directly. He doesn't need to. He simply looks at her with the patient gravity of someone who has measured the danger accurately, and is waiting for her to catch up to the measurement. She thinks of the video Sable was filming. The way the phone tracked her. The feeling of being framed inside someone else's intention, positioned for a story you weren't consulted about. Okay, she says. Okay? Okay. She says it again, firmer. Tell me what you need from me. The relief in his face, barely visible, quickly controlled, but there, is the first unguarded thing she's seen from him all evening. I need tonight, he says. I need you to trust me for the length of one evening. And then I need to show you something about how your sister's world actually works. And then, he says, you decide how much further you want to go. They don't sleep. By midnight they are in a different room entirely, a private office above the restaurant, spare and functional, screens on one wall showing feeds she doesn't immediately understand. He moves through this space differently than he moved through the dining room, quicker, more purposeful, the way a person moves on ground that is genuinely theirs. He walks her through it systematically. The network's content pipeline. The platform structures. The financial trails, which are more visible than the operators of these systems believe, if you know where to look and have the tools to look with. He shows her things in broad strokes, enough for comprehension, protecting her from specifics she doesn't need and couldn't unknow. And then he shows her Sable's place in it. She is 3 years in. A reliable supplier. Trusted enough to be given a small cut of the back-end revenue on her content. Disposable enough that the operation would not collapse without her, but valuable enough that protecting her has been, to this point, worth the effort. She's not the prize, Dale says. She's a thread. Pull her correctly and something larger unravels with her. And incorrectly? Incorrectly, she gets spooked, she goes silent, the network shifts, and we lose 6 months of work. Zarya processes this. So you need her to walk into it herself. He looks at her with something that might, in another man, be called appreciation. Yes. You need her to think she's winning. She needs to believe tonight didn't cost her anything. That I was a random stranger who interrupted one evening and then disappeared. That the network is intact. That she can run the same operation again. He pulls up something on one of the screens, a content architecture diagram, nodes and connections. If she believes that, she moves. And when she moves, we have everything we need. What do you need from me? Patience, he says. And your phone. He explains what he's looking for, a message from Sable, which he expects will come within 48 hours. An attempt to reconnect. Possibly an apology, performative, lightweight, as a way of testing whether Zarya is angry enough to have made noise, or whether she swallowed the evening the way she's swallowed things before. She thinks I'll absorb it, Zarya says flatly. She's counting on 20 years of precedent. Zarya picks up her phone from the table where she set it 3 hours ago. She turns it over in her hands once. And when she reaches out? You respond warmly. You act like tonight was confusing and hurtful, but you're willing to talk. You follow the script I'll give you. He meets her eyes. She'll invite you somewhere. She'll want to control the environment for the follow-up. Make sure she has the advantage before you have the full picture of tonight. And I go. And you go. With a device I'll give you. And she'll run the operation in front of you, thinking she's demonstrating her power to her sad, forgiving sister. He pauses. And you'll have documented everything we need to give the network's financial backers a reason to cut her off completely. Zarya is quiet. They thought they were in control, she says, half to herself. They thought they were in control, he confirms. She looks at him across the lit screens, the architectural diagram of her sister's betrayal glowing between them on the wall, and she feels something that she will have trouble naming later. Not quite anger, not quite grief, something that sits between them. Clarity, maybe? The particular clarity of seeing something completely, finally, without the distortion of hope or fear. She doesn't know she's already inside the trap, Zarya says. She doesn't know she walked in the moment I sat down. Zarya sets her phone on the table, face up, within easy reach. She looks at it for a moment. You do this often, she says. Not quite a question. Dismantle things. Often enough. And you're good at it. Yes. The brevity of the answer is its own kind of evidence. She picks up the mug of tea that appeared at some point. She doesn't remember him making it, but it's there, it's warm, and the gesture is quiet enough that it doesn't announce itself as kindness. It just is. Okay, she says again. Tell me the script. He sits down across from her, in a chair that's slightly lower than she expected for a man so accustomed to the elevated position of every room, and he leans forward with his elbows on his knees and begins. And she listens. Sable's message arrives in 31 hours. Hey. I've been thinking about you. I know things have been weird between us. Can we talk? I miss my sister. Zarya reads it 4 times. The 4th time, she reads it the way Dale taught her to read things, not for feeling, but for structure. The warmth is at the front. The ask is buried in the middle. The I miss my sister is load-bearing. It is the weight placed on the scale to make the ask seem small. She types the response Dale drafted. She changes 2 words to sound more like herself. She sends it. I'd like that. Tell me where. The location Sable chooses is a loft space in a neighborhood Zarya doesn't know well. Not a restaurant, not a public place, but a semi-private studio that gets rented for events. Big windows. Good light. Equipment friendly. The kind of space, Zarya understands now, that is selected for a reason. She wears the device Dale showed her. Small, specific, clipped inside the hem of her jacket collar. She checks it twice before she leaves her apartment. She checks it a 3rd time in the elevator. She did not sleep much in the intervening 31 hours. She organized things instead, her apartment, her thoughts, the particular filing system of herself that she uses when something is about to happen that requires her to be fully assembled. She arrives 5 minutes early. Sable is already there. Her twin stands in the center of the loft with the particular satisfaction of someone in their own environment, comfortable, unhurried, bright-eyed with a warmth that Zarya has learned to read the underside of. She has set up a small ring light near the far window. Not prominently. Just there, available. You came, Sable says, opening her arms. Zarya walks into the hug. She holds it the right number of seconds. They sit. They talk. Sable performs the apology she prepared. It is technically an apology, in that it contains the words "I'm sorry and I didn't handle it well," but it never reaches the thing it's supposed to address. It goes around the edges of it beautifully. Zarya nods. She does not push. She watches Sable relax incrementally as the conversation unfolds without friction. And then, As Dale predicted, almost to the minute, Sable shifts. Casual. Gradual. She mentions a project she's working on. She mentions the platform, the audience, the kind of content that resonates. She talks about authenticity, about real stories, about how much more powerful unscripted moments are than anything manufactured. She talks about it the way someone talks about a thing they've justified completely. I was thinking, Sable says, reaching for her phone. We could film something. Just us. Real. Two sisters being honest. People love that. Zarya looks at the phone. She looks at the ring light near the window. She looks at her sister. No, she says. Sable blinks. What? No. She says it again, the same volume, no added edge. I'm not going to do that. A shift in Sable's face, small, quick, recalibrated. Zar, it's just. I know what it is. Zarya sets down her tea. And I know about the network. I know about the platform's back-end structure. I know about the revenue share and the content pipeline and the men who get paid or called in as favor returns. She watches her sister's face change with each sentence. I know about the other women. Sable goes very still. The device I'm wearing, Zarya says, has been active since I walked in. Everything in this room is already documented. The silence that falls is not dramatic. It is just complete. The ring light hums faintly. Outside, a siren passes, distant and dissolving. Sable looks at her sister across the space of the loft. For a moment, just a moment, something genuine crosses her face. Not guilt exactly. Something older and more complicated, something that might have been the feeling under all the envy if the envy had ever been lifted away long enough to look at what it was covering. I hate that you got to be the one who did this, Sable says quietly. I know. I hate that you have someone in your corner who could. I know, Sable. Silence. She expected this to feel like victory. That's what Zarya realizes she got wrong, sitting here in the morning light of a loft that smells like coffee and equipment, and her sister's particular perfume, the expensive kind she wears to feel like herself. She expected to feel the satisfaction of the trap closing. Instead, she feels the weight of it. The specific heaviness of being right about someone you spent 20 years hoping you were wrong about. She doesn't cry. She thought this moment would feel like closure. But it doesn't. It feels like the last page of a chapter that was too long and cost too much to get through. What they thought was her weakness, the bond she couldn't fully sever, the hope she kept extending, was the one thing they couldn't predict. That she'd come here anyway. That she'd face it directly instead of letting it be done to her from a distance. She expected closure. Something in her chest says. She doesn't feel it. She stands up. She adjusts her jacket. She walks to the door. Sable, she says without turning. Don't contact me after today. She opens the door. She walks out into the morning. The dinner happens 6 days later. Not a restaurant this time. His apartment, a top-floor space that is large in the way of a place where someone actually lives rather than performs living, books stacked without alignment on a built-in shelf, a jacket on the back of a kitchen chair, a half-finished glass of water on the counter beside the kettle. She notices these things because she notices things, and because she is still assembling her full picture of who this man is from the available evidence. He makes pasta. He doesn't ask if she likes pasta, he just makes it, the way someone makes a thing they make well and have decided to make. She sits at the kitchen island and watches him. The ease of his hands. The way he tastes as he goes, without ceremony. The way the apartment smells like something old and woody, cedar, or something adjacent to cedar, and the garlic and butter from the pan. You don't have to tell me how it went, he says. I know. But I think you want to. She considers this. I want to tell someone who already knows the structure of it. So I don't have to explain the architecture. I can just describe what it felt like. He looks at her over his shoulder. Then tell me what it felt like. She tells him. She tells him about walking into the loft, and the ring light and Sable's practiced warmth, and the shift. She can still feel the exact moment of the shift, when the conversation went from performed sisterhood to operational positioning. She tells him about saying no and watching Sable's face move through its layers in real time. She tells him about walking out without crying. He plates the pasta. He sets it in front of her. He sits across the island. "How do you feel?" he asks. She picks up her fork. She turns the question over. "Empty," she says finally. Not in a destroyed way. In a drained way. Like when you've been bracing for impact for a very long time and the impact finally comes and you realize you used more energy bracing than the impact actually required. He nods. He doesn't offer her anything to fill the emptiness, which is exactly right. They eat in the quiet that is the companionable kind, the kind that doesn't require management. She hasn't had this quality of quiet with another person in a long time. The kind where her mind isn't running background calculations about what her silence is communicating, or how it's being received. "There's a boy on my street," she says after a while. He looks up. "He's about 6. He asks me every morning what the weather is, because his window faces the wrong direction and he can't see the sky from his bed." She turns her wine glass slowly in her fingers. "He asked me this morning. I told him it was going to be gray but not cold. He thought about it for a minute and then he said..." She pauses, feeling the weight of it return. "He said, 'You don't look gray. You look like something happened to you that was good.'" Dale is quiet. 6 years old?" she says. "And he saw it." The words land in the room and stay there. "You're not broken," Dale says. Not "you aren't broken" as a reassurance. As a fact stated with the same precision he uses for everything. "They just didn't know how to see you." She breathes in. Out. "That's what he said," she says. "Almost exactly. The boy." He looks at her steadily. "Children are better at this than the rest of us." They finish dinner. He washes the plates, she offers to help and he waves her off without looking up from the sink, and she understands this is not dismissal but a particular kind of hospitality, the kind that says, "Sit, you've done enough today." She sits. Her phone buzzes once on the island. She looks at it. A message from Sable's number. The last one she'll respond to, she has already decided. "I hope you're happy." "I really do. I'm going to try to be." She stares at it for a long moment. She deletes it. Not with anger. Not with satisfaction either. She deletes it the way you close a window on a drafty day, not because outside is terrible, just because inside is warmer and you've made a choice about where you want to be. Dale dries his hands. He doesn't look at her phone or ask about it. "Stay," he says. Not a demand. Not quite a question. The word offered the way he offers most things, plainly, without decoration, with the quiet confidence of someone who has decided it is the right thing to say and has nothing to hide about saying it. She looks at him. "Okay," she says. Later, much later, after the wine is finished and the city outside has quieted to its late-night register of distant sirens and the rhythm of rain beginning on the window, she is almost asleep when his phone vibrates on the nightstand. He picks it up carefully, so as not to wake her. She isn't asleep. She's close enough that she sees it anyway, barely, through lashes dropped to slits, the way his face changes as he reads. Not dramatically. Just the small reorganization that happens to a face when the information it receives is serious enough to require processing before expression. He sets the phone face down on the nightstand. He lies back. He does not move for a long time. He stares at the ceiling with the stillness of someone running calculations. She doesn't ask him what the message said. She knows he will tell her when he decides to. What she doesn't know, what she will not know until he tells her, which will not be tonight, is that the message is from Michael, and that what it says is this. The network's primary backer isn't a platform. The original setup of your target was commissioned. Someone paid to have her humiliated specifically. This goes higher than the sister. On the ceiling above them, the shadows from the rain-scattered streetlight move without pattern, the way water always does. This wasn't the beginning. And it definitely wasn't the end.